Very good afternoon to all the dignitaries on the dais and everyone in front of me. Like Mr. Ruben Banerjee, I also have a perennial regret that I never got an opportunity to meet Dr. Mahtab in person. Though I was in Bhubaneswar since 1981 and he died in 87. But one memory that has stayed with me all these years is Dr. Mahtab's car passing on the national highway. I was staying in a hostel which was just next to the national highway, and almost every day I used to watch his car pass by at a particular time. He was so particular about his time that you could set your watch to it. The red car, which was very famous, that is the car he used to take from Bhubaneswar to Cuttack to do his editorial duties in Prajatantra. And when I was in school, the Odia vernacular media scene was dominated by two newspapers. My editor has already mentioned those two dailies, Samaj and Prajatantra. But my father used to subscribe to Prajatantra. And one day, I asked my father, why are you subscribing to Prajatantra and not Samaj? And he told me, it's because he wants to read Ga Majlis. Those were the days when we used to get the dark edition, which reached a day late at the place where we stayed. My father was a government servant and worked very far from Cuttack and Bhubaneswar. So the newspapers, both Samaj and Prajatantra, used to reach a day late. But my father would just pounce on the Ga Majlis column, and he insisted that I should also read the column, if not the rest of the newspaper. And I started reading Ga Majlis, his famous column, where he dealt with all kinds of subjects. And I wish I could write a column like that. Of course, I write a column in Sambad. Mr. Ranjan Patnaik has been kind enough to give me a place. But I can never dream of writing, covering the variety of subjects that he did and in the language that he did. He wrote in a language that was understood by the common person, the person who had only a basic knowledge of Odia, somebody in a village who could understand as did everyone else. And that was the most striking feature of his column writing. The language that he used was aimed at the lowest common denominator, who only had a basic education with Odia medium. He could understand what he is talking about, something which I have found it very difficult to emulate. I have not been able to bring myself down to that level where I can communicate with a common person in a language that he understands. And for me, Dr. Mahtab would be remembered if he had not done anything, if he had not gone into politics, if he had not done anything else. I would remember him for his Ga Majlis column, which has 8 volumes published, and one of them went on to win the Sahitya Academy Award. My former editor, Mr. Ruben Banerjee, talked about separating journalism from politics. And my former editor, Mr. Soumya Patnaik, he gave a justification why in Odisha, in the particular context, politics has never really been detached with journalism. My own view on this thing is, given the kind of socio-political situation we had at the time, Dr. Mahtab, as a journalist, I don't think he could have achieved what he did had he not been a politician. To cite just one example, he took up the cause of animal sacrifice in the famous Chandi Mandir in Cuttack. And he carried on the campaign in Prajatantra, and in also he took it up on the street. And together, those two simultaneous campaigns finally ensured that animal sacrifice was stopped. No journalist could have done the same. We still write about animal sacrifice in Balangir. The administration still tries to stop it every year, but has not been able. He could do that because he was a politician, he was a social reformer, at the same time he was also a journalist. So for a person to combine all those attributes as a journalist, as a politician, as a social reformer, that is amazing. We cannot think of another person in the modern era who has worn so many hats and managed to do justice to all of them. So my hats off to Dr. Mahtab. He has been a pioneer, not just in Odisha, even at the national level. He has been a pioneer in many things. Many of you perhaps don't know that the merger of princely states actually started from Odisha with a small princely kingdom called Nilagiri. And that was the first experiment in merger of princely states, which was later replicated nationwide by Sardar Patel, and more than 500 princely states merged with India. And Dr. Mahtab was the architect of that first merger. So many things I can say, but since I've been given 10 minutes of time, I won't prolong this talk any longer. Prajatantra, the story of modern Odisha, the socio-cultural political life of Odisha, has been the story of Prajatantra. As long as he was there at the helm of Prajatantra, I think Prajatantra controlled or influenced the socio-cultural political life of Odisha like no other Odia newspaper has managed to do. And my tributes to Dr. Mahtab for having shown the way, not just during the freedom struggle, but more importantly, after independence, even when he was not in power, he talked truth to power. He brought out the common man's point of view in his writing, which was a great thing. Mr. Soumya Patnaik referred to how he was in government, but his newspaper used to take a stand which was completely different from the government stand, and very few people can manage that. You had a newspaper and you are also a politician, but your stand will be different. That is a very, very difficult thing to manage. So hats off to him, my tributes to him. And we should all try to learn a little more about Dr. Mahtab, those who don't know enough. If nothing else, I think everyone who reads Odia should read Ga Majlis. With that, I'll just close my speech. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Upendra Padhi Mahasay, for having me. Thank you.